Hey everybody, how's it going? In this video, I'm going to talk about the pros and cons of solo travel versus group travel. Solo travel is one of those things that you kind of have to try to see whether or not you like it. It's certainly not for everyone. Hopefully this video will kind of give you an idea of what to expect when solo traveling. So let's get started. The biggest benefit of solo travel is the freedom and independence that it offers. When you travel alone, you are in complete control of your whole trip. You decide where you go, what you do. You don't have to take anyone else's preferences into consideration. You can stay at whatever hotel you want. You can eat at whatever restaurant you want. If you really like a particular city, you can extend your stay. There are no compromises in solo travel. Another benefit of solo travel is that you get to travel at your own pace. When you travel in a group, there's always someone slowing you down. Maybe there's a slow packer or a slow eater or someone who's just running late. And when that happens, the group has to wait and you waste time. When you're alone, you keep your own pace. Or maybe you're the slow one and you prefer to take your time. That's fine too. When you travel alone, you have all the time in the world. If you want to spend the whole day at a museum, you can do that. If you want to take a rest day and not do anything for the whole day, you can do that too. Solo travel can also help you with personal development. When you travel alone, you will face some hardships. You might have to deal with a language barrier. You could lose a piece of luggage. You'll have to deal with bureaucracy when applying for visas. You might fall victim to a crime. You could get pickpocketed or robbed. You'll also experience a range of emotions. You might feel loneliness or anxiety or confusion or depression. This is all part of the journey. These experiences build character. The way you deal with these situations will tell you a lot about yourself. And you'll also be able to deal with these types of situations better in the future. When you solo travel, you'll become more independent, more adaptable, more confident, more courageous, and more accepting. You also don't have to worry about finding a travel partner when you travel alone. Simply finding someone to travel with can be a real challenge. Not everyone has the money to travel. It's pretty expensive. Not everyone can get the time off of work. Also, it's really common for someone to flake out on you. But when you travel alone, you don't have to deal with any of that. You can also be a lot more flexible and spontaneous when you travel alone. You can pretty much just wake up in the morning and choose what you want to do for the day. If you want to sleep in, you can. If you want to stay out all night, you can. You can change your plans mid-trip if you want. You can be completely flexible in your plans. Also, if you like a more structured trip, you can do that too. Maybe you don't like being flexible. Maybe you like having a rigid plan that's all set before you leave home. That's fine too, and that can work well for some trips. Another benefit of solo travel is that you're not stuck with the same people. When you travel with a group, you must stay with the group. If there's a person in the group that you just don't get along with or that you don't like for whatever reason, you're stuck with them. The same is true when you travel with friends. Maybe you have a great friend back home, but you find that you just don't travel well together. When you travel alone, you don't have to spend time with anyone you don't want to. Another massive benefit of solo travel is that you get time to yourself. So introverts like me love this part of it. You never have to talk to anyone if you don't want to. You can eat alone. You can go sightseeing alone. On your downtime, you can sit by yourself and think. You can read, you can write, you can listen to music. You can spend as much time alone as you like. Another benefit of solo travel is that you get to decide how you spend your money. Most of us have a limited budget, and we all like to spend differently. When you travel alone, you can choose how you spend your money. You can choose the type of accommodation you stay at. Maybe you'd rather save money and stay at a hostel, or maybe you would like to splurge on accommodation and stay at a fancy resort. Same with food. When you're traveling in a group, you don't really have as much say. You kind of have to do what the group wants to do. If everyone in the group wants to stay at a fancy resort, but you'd rather stay at a cheap hotel, you might feel pressured to overspend, or maybe you have a higher budget than your group and you prefer to splurge when they can't afford to. Then you may have to give up some luxuries. Now I'm going to go over some drawbacks of solo travel. The biggest drawback of solo travel is loneliness. When you travel alone, you will feel lonely at times. There's no avoiding it. You'll eat alone, you'll go sightseeing alone, you'll spend hours alone while you're in transit with just your own thoughts. It can get really lonely. The good news is that there are some ways to deal with this loneliness. You could stay at a hostel and meet some other travelers. You could take a class. There are lots of ways to meet people. Solo travel is also more expensive. When you travel alone, you don't have anyone to split costs with, so if you take a taxi or an Uber, you have to pay the full fare by yourself. If you stay in a hotel room, you can't split it with anyone, you have to pay for the whole room by yourself. When you travel with a group or a friend, you can split costs and you can save quite a bit of money. The cost also depends on the destination. Some destinations are better suited for solo travel than others. For example, some destinations there are lots of cheap accommodation, there are hostels and budget hotels, but some destinations are a lot more expensive to solo travel. Solo travel is also a little more dangerous. You're more likely to fall victim to a crime. It's easier for a criminal to scam you or pickpocket you or rob you, even assault or drug you. That's because you're an easier target for thieves when you're alone. It's easier for criminals to trick or overpower an individual than a group of people, so there is safety in numbers. When you travel alone, you also don't have anyone there to rely on if you get into trouble. If you get sick or injured or if you get arrested or anything like that, you're kind of on your own. So you do have to be a little more cautious when you're traveling alone. One of the biggest drawbacks of solo travel is that you have to eat alone. Personally, this is my least favorite part of solo travel. It's awkward going into a restaurant and asking for a table for one. You may feel self-conscious just sitting alone at a table eating your food. You might feel like people are watching you or wondering why you're alone, why aren't your friends and family with you. When you travel solo, you will have to eat alone. It's just something you got to get used to. I've traveled alone for years and it's just something that I can't get used to. I really hate eating alone. You also have to plan and arrange everything by yourself when you travel alone. Planning a big international trip is a pretty big job. You have to create a budget, plan a route, book accommodation, research transportation, research things to do and activities, book tickets. You have to arrange visas. There's just a lot of work. This is hours and hours worth of work. When you take a group tour, everything is planned and arranged for you. All you have to do is follow the guide. When you travel with friends or family, you can kind of divide up the work. Another drawback of solo travel is that there's nobody to take photos for you. So you have to be your own photographer. You can just take selfies, or you can set up a tripod and use the timer. You can also ask a stranger to take photos for you, but the quality of your photos will probably be a little lower. There's also no one there to share the experience with when you travel alone. Sometimes you'll want to experience the beauty of a destination with another person. When you're alone, there's nobody there to comment to or share your thoughts with. You just have to keep everything to yourself. This makes the experience feel a little bit less special. It's just not as memorable when you visit a place alone, take a few photos and leave. People might also think you're kind of weird when you're traveling alone. In some destinations, a person might come up to you and ask you if you're alone. They might ask you why you're alone. They might ask you where your friends and family are. Some people just don't get solo travel. It's just a completely foreign concept to them. You will get some weird comments and weird looks once in a while. In these situations, people might just kind of pity you or think you're weird. To me, this is kind of frustrating and a little bit depressing. Some people just can't get it through their head that I'm traveling alone by choice. So these are some of the main pros and cons of solo travel. For more in-depth analysis, check out my article. I'll link that down in the description. I've been solo traveling for about 12 years now. I took my first trip in 2011, and I've solo traveled to a little over 60 countries since then. I've also traveled in groups a few times as well. Personally, I really love solo travel. I'm a bit of a loner naturally, so it really suits my personality. But I would say the biggest drawback is the loneliness. It's just unavoidable, so be prepared for that. If you're used to traveling with other people, solo travel can definitely be a nice change. Being alone really has its benefits. That said, solo travel really isn't for everyone. The loneliness can get really overwhelming at times. If you're in a foreign country where you don't speak the local language, it can be a real struggle. Some people also suffer from anxiety when traveling alone. If you're in a foreign country where you don't speak the language and there's these new sights and smells and crowds and noise, it can get really overwhelming. Also, it's easy to get depressed while you're solo traveling. If you're alone all the time, and maybe if something bad happens, you get ripped off, or if someone says something rude or whatever, it can just get you down. And there's nobody there to cheer you back up, so that can be tough as well. Anyway, hopefully you found this video helpful. If you have, please like and subscribe. That'll help me out. I've got more videos like this on the way. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.